Hey, it's Scott from Family Wheels, and this week we are reviewing the Hyundai Kona Electric, and I'm pretty excited about this car because as far as electric vehicles go, it's kind of been like the whole Prius, Ioniq type of thing out there, and there isn't really too much available yet in terms of like electric SUVs. And while I don't know that I would call the Kona a full-on SUV, it's closer to it than, say, a Prius. And like I said, there's not a lot of options out there for electrics. So I think that this particular car has a lot to offer, especially the fact that it's an electric. So we'll take you through all the ins and outs and run it through the standardized testing and all of that, and then see if it's the right car for you and your growing family. It's the Hyundai Kona Electric this week on Family Wheels. Okay, so without a doubt, the first thing that people want to know about when they see the Kona Electric is everything that has to do with its electric car-edness. So we'll just run over some of the generalized questions there. No, it does not have a gas tank at all and does not use any gas. This is not a hybrid. This is a strictly electric vehicle. Okay, range. I just unplugged from a charging station. The battery is all the way full, and it's showing me 458 kilometers of range. Now I'm driving it on eco mode. There's also a normal and a sport mode, so we'll get into that a little bit later on. How long does it take to charge? Well, that kind of depends on what kind of charging station you're using. Here in Vancouver, I'm charging it on essentially a level 2 charger, so it's not like I'm plugging it straight into a house outlet. It's more than that. Near my work, there's a level 2 charger that I plug into when I park at work, and it charges about, I would say, 80 to 100 kilometers for every hour that it's plugged in, and it costs about $2 per hour. So if you figure, you want a 400 kilometer tank, that's 4 hours of charging, and it's probably going to cost you about 10 bucks. So ridiculously cheap to charge. Now, other charging stations are going to charge more. This is on a private charging network. You could also plug it in at your house. I've done that before as well, but leaving it overnight plugged in just into a standard household outlet charges about 30 to 40 kilometers over 6 hours, like overnight. So that would work on kind of a day-to-day basis, but it's not enough to charge the battery all the way up. And then of course there are superchargers around town as well that would charge the entire battery in about an hour, and of course those are even more expensive. But all in all, substantially cheaper than using a gas vehicle, and I actually have found it quite practical. Basically everywhere I go around the city, I'm able to find charging stations, or like I said, just plug it in my driveway at the end of the day. So charging, not an issue, and a full charge has lasted me about a week, sort of just doing daily driving and that sort of thing. Now of course if you switch it into sport mode, that changes, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well. The charging socket is on the front of this car here, so when you nose in, it's really easy to plug in. Interesting thing though, like a gas door, I often found myself leaving it open, and then the car reminds you, hey, your charging door is open. The Kona also comes with its own charging cable, which can be stored really easily in the trunk here. Lots of space for that. It's all just very, very easy to use. I've said this before, I think the future for electric cars is really bright, and if this is any indication of how good they're going to be, I'm really, really excited about it. And the convenience, the ease, and of course the cost of driving an electric car over this week has been fantastic. Now, beyond the electric car stuff, the Kona itself is a fantastic vehicle, so let's talk about some of that. It's kind of like this hatchback type of thing. It's a little bit higher up. It's kind of like a compact crossover is where I would slot it. Now, it is compact. When you get into the vehicle, while it's nice and spacious enough, it's definitely cramped. The seats are comfortable, the ergonomics are great, but there's just not a whole lot of space in here. The passenger seat, decent amount of room. The back seat, quite small. Not a ton of room back there for passengers. I mean, there is seating for 5, which is great, but I don't think you'd want large adults back there for a long time. And then as we get into the trunk, things are pretty small back there as well. This is the first vehicle in a long time that I've actually had an issue with it passing our standardized trunk test. So that's a stroller, diaper bag, camera bag, 2 bags of groceries, and a soccer ball. So this being a hatchback, it does have that privacy cover. With that removed, yes, it can pass the standardized trunk test. So it is possible. But with that privacy cover in, I couldn't fit all of that stuff. I even took the wheels off the stroller and everything to try to get it all to fit. Just no way that it was all going to fit. So that's a bit of a bummer, but you can fold the seats flat, or like basically almost flat in the back. So if you need more space, you can do that. But basically, this is not going to be the car for a large family that's moving around a lot of gear. That said, though, if you just have small kids, maybe one child, that type of thing, it could work. Rear-facing car seat test, I mean, it works. There's not a ton of space up front here. We're going to say 27 inches from the back of the front passenger seat to the glove box. So it's not terrible, but it's also not great. Installing that rear-facing car seat, also not the easiest thing either. I'm liking that in lots of cars we're seeing these latch cover systems. I always talk about this. Here we don't have that. We just have the little indicators that show you where the latches are. It's better than nothing, but it wasn't the easiest to clip that latch system in with the rear-facing car seat. Continuing with the standardized testing, decibel test, it's an electric car, not a combustion engine. It's very quiet, 58 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour on dry roads. Really happy with that. And of course, when you turn the vehicle on or you're sitting at a traffic light, if you didn't know better, you would have no idea that the car is even on. There's no rumble when it starts up or anything. You know, sometimes people are like, is the car even on? Or you get in and you go to put it in drive or park or whatever, you put it in park, and you forget that the car is actually on because it's an electric motor and you can't even tell. There's no vibration, nothing like that. So yeah, very quiet. And then of course, the look back test. Well, I think it's a quirky little car. I actually kind of like it. People notice that it's electric, so that's kind of fun. Not a huge fan of the rims or the color on this particular model, but in general, I don't think the Kona is a bad looking car, but I don't know that I would find myself looking back because I just am in love with the way that it looks. So, you know, it's, I guess, satisfactory in the look back test area, but again, looks probably not the reason that you're buying an electric car. So let's go back to the interior here. Yeah, it's comfortable, you know, nice leather seats. I'm not wild about the color in here. It's this light gray, but there are options there. There's lots of little features in here that just make the Kona a really nice vehicle to be in. Heated and vented seats, heated steering wheel, nice size sunroof. The sound system is fantastic. We get infinity speakers, sounds really great. Heads-up display, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise, all those type of things. You know, just, it's well optioned. You're not really lacking anything in here. Nice big storage underneath the console here, storage in the doors. We get a big storage compartment here underneath the infotainment system. It has wireless charging, which I've talked about a lot. I think is once you have it, you'll never go back. It's fantastic to have. 2 decently sized cup holders, nice little storage pocket here in front of the armrest, and then we get decent sized storage here underneath the armrest. There is 1 USB port in here, and then no USB ports for the rear seat here, which is a bit of a letdown. But infotainment system, nice big screen here. It displays what you want. It's nothing too fancy, but it looks decent enough and really easy to navigate, and it just works. It's very responsive. Climate controls as well, same thing, well labeled, very responsive, easy to follow. Nice tactile buttons and big knobs. Same thing on the infotainment system, nice tactile buttons and big knobs, easy to follow. And Bluetooth connectivity, fantastic. Steering wheel controls, they all work well. Interestingly, there's paddle shifters on the steering wheel here. These are to control the regenerative braking on the electric car system. So it's on level 2 now, so when I take my foot off the gas, the car slows itself down quicker and regenerates. I'm in traffic right now, but if you were on the highway, you could take this down to level 0 and the car coasts lots easier, which is nice. So depending on your driving style, you can adjust it so that it regenerates the battery and gets you more mileage. And an interesting note on that, people talk about the range thing all the time in these electric cars. Like I said, when I got in, 458 kilometers was what it told me the range was. Now, depending on how you're driving, that's going to go up and down, but it doesn't, like in a gas car, you know, if you drive it better, you get better mileage. But with the regeneration factor here, the fact that, you know, the braking charges up the battery, that 450-ish K can really, really stretch. There are times we'll all go out on like a 10-kilometer trip, and that number only drops by 3 or 4 kilometers, or it drops and then it goes back up. So I actually think that you could get a lot more than 450 kilometers out of a charge. And I mean, don't quote me on it, but it does feel like it's possible to do that. And if you were trying to really hypermile this thing, you could definitely stretch the range beyond that 450 kilometers. Okay, quick sidebar here. Back to the infotainment system. The dash is digital. It's cool when you switch between driving modes. All the information there switches. It shows you basically your battery meter, whether the car is sucking or charging, battery, and this power and charge meter there as well. Speedometer. And then there's other things like infotainment details there, like what you're listening to, compass, range, that sort of stuff as well. And of course, you can get information about what the battery in the car and all your efficiency and stuff from the infotainment screen here as well. All in all, I think Hyundai's infotainment systems are fantastic, and I really, really like them. Drive-wise, okay, so when I picked this car up, the guys who lent it to me were like, oh man, you got a fun one this week. And now that's not what you think right off the top when you're picking up Hyundai Kona Electric. And I guess I could see why. It doesn't really strike you as like a sports car or something that's going to be absolutely wild. But we know that electric cars generate a lot more torque than gas vehicles. And when you put this thing in sport mode, holy smokes, it absolutely screams. Like, you can lay a patch, you can you know, melt the tires, it handles amazingly through the corners. It feels faster than a lot of sports cars that I've driven. You could definitely scare the bejesus off of some passengers just by mashing the pedal, because all of that torque from the electric motor is right there right now. It's really, really fun car to drive. But of course, it definitely sucks a lot more battery power when you're doing that. But as we've already mentioned, charging the battery is a lot cheaper than mashing the gas pedal in a big V8. So all in all, I think it's probably worth the trade-off. So all in all, I think the Hyundai Kona Electric is a very interesting car, and it certainly piqued mine after driving it for a week. I actually considered perhaps even getting one because A, it's so economical. I mean, the charging stations are popping up everywhere, and it's just really, really easy to do. I don't know if I would even need to put a larger charger in at home, because near my workplace, and it seemed like every kind of shopping trip or errand run that I was doing, there were great charging stations available. So yeah, really, really practical there, but also just an absolute hoot to drive. I mean, it takes off the line like a rocket. It handles well. When you put it in sport mode, it's tight and grippy. You know, it can weave through traffic and that type of thing. Like, really, really fun, you know? And you combine those two things, and I almost forget that this car is so small and would not work for my growing family. You know, we would like to have more kids. We have a large dog, and we take a lot of stuff with us when we go to the beach. So those to me are the drawbacks here. It's just not that big. But if you're commuting, or it's a second vehicle, or you don't take a lot of stuff with you, I think that this thing is definitely worth a look. It's a decent looking little hatch, and like I said, if nothing else, it's exciting to see what the future of electric cars could be just based on this example here. I will say that I'm certainly impressed by the Hyundai Kona Electric. It's worth checking out. For Family Wheels, I'm Scott.